Hi everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Astrology show on the Wisdom Hub channel. It's my great pleasure to be once again in discussion with the beautiful, lovely Pam Gregory. This is our fourth show this year, working with the equinox and solstice energies. And it's been an absolute humdinger of a year for sure. And I'm sure I speak for many people in just giving absolute gratitude and thanks, Pam, for all that you do for us all. How many people, how many of my friends have been guided by your astrology, by your work. And yes, so it's an absolute delight to be here with you once again. And yeah, let's get into what's going to happen with the winter solstice and what's coming next in 2022.
Wow, thank you so much, Davyd. Always an absolute joy to connect with you. Lovely to be here. So I know you're a long way away at the moment. So, okay, I just want to kind of back up a little before I talk about the winter solstice, because there's so much astrology happening this month, and we're already a week in, so we've got kind of 3 weeks to go of a lot of things happening. On the 11th, Venus comes to conjunct Pluto in Capricorn, and Capricorn is the sign of banking, big business, finance, stock exchange, that kind of thing. Venus is to do with currencies, so conjunct with Pluto on the 11th, then again on Christmas Day, 25th, and then again 3rd of March. So this is going to raise a lot of issues around finances and the economy and stock markets. And some of you may be aware, I did a video on the US Pluto return, because really all of this energy is feeding into that. Because if you look at the so-called birth chart for America, 4th of July, 1776, Philadelphia, 5:10 in the afternoon, they're going through what's called their Pluto return. So Pluto has about a 246, 248 year orbit. It's coming back to its so-called natal place of 1776. Exact in February, continuing through 22 and 23. We are into that energy already, and Pluto in that chart is in the second house of the country's economy. And a whole bunch of other stuff I could talk about that is really signaling we're into some rock and roll with possibly global markets, a lot of changes in finance that could be moving much more to blockchain and independent. I want to say we're moving towards financial systems rather than just a financial system singular. But anyway, we will see what happens around then. But just if we look to say Evergrande, that very large Chinese property company, that has been hanging on a thread for some months. It actually did miss its last loan debt payment. At the moment, I think the Chinese government is scrabbling to get money from the central bank to bail it, to hold it up, because if Evergrande goes down, biggest property company, and property accounts for 15% of the Chinese economy, that is going to be global financial contagion. And it's quite precarious. It may not be Evergrande that triggers it, but I've got my eye on that, because it's going to be something that triggers a series of events, I think. And then on the 16th of the month, we have Mars coming to conjunct the South Node. Now, Mars has approximately a 2-year orbit, and we don't have a kind of drastic event every 2 years, but it has historically thrown up some very powerful events like 9/11. For instance, Mars was conjunct the South Node. So that's on the 16th. And then we start to run in really to the solstice, the winter solstice, winter in the Northern Hemisphere, when the sun enters Capricorn. And Davyd, you will know better than I what high energy is happening around these equinoxes and solstices. I mean, it's just built higher and higher and higher. And when I was interviewing Zach a couple of months ago, I said to him, is the energy around this winter solstice going to be particularly strong? And the answer was yes. It won't just be, for a couple of days. It will be from the 15th of December till the 11th of January, almost 4 weeks. That's extraordinary. That's incredible. And, I'm sure you're feeling that too, because this is highly charged evolutionary energy that we're about to step into next week. And I'm sure you're feeling that in every cell of your body, Davyd.
Yeah. Yeah, I find it interesting when I was doing the preparation for this discussion, actually, Pam, and just reviewing your recent videos. And you mentioned about the recent discussion you had with Zach and about this 4 weeks that starts in just a few days' time. And I feel like the recent eclipse actually was almost like the preview for that in some ways. And perhaps we'll talk a little bit about that later on. But this process that we're in now is incredibly high energy, high frequency, and it's affecting us all in different ways. In some really beautiful ways, but also in some challenging ways. And I think it's interesting that Zach highlighted this 4 week period, because I guess for the last couple of years, it's this particular period we're in now that to me has always seemed to be the pivotal point. And you've even referred to it as the tipping point, right?
Yeah, I think we are just going over the pivot point of the seesaw. So that's why the energy feels so incredibly intense. And I think the energy will be very different next year to how it's been in the last 2 years, 2020, 22. And I'll get into that a little bit later. So, you know, if I look at the chart for the Capricorn solstice, and I've set this for New York, so it's EST time, Eastern Standard Time, 10:45 in the morning. And the sun, because it's just entering Capricorn, is also, remember, conjunct the galactic center, which the full moon in Gemini is on the 19th as well. Actually, just to say on the 19th, because that's a very important full moon, that full moon is also on the galactic, on the great attractor, which is at 14 of Sagittarius. Galactic center is at 27 of Sagittarius, and that's where the moon is opposing it, the sun is conjunct it. And so this really gives us an opportunity, which we have at every equinox and solstice, but from an even higher level of getting more galactic information, very high level information, which we don't normally have access to, because this aligns with it. And it's very interesting because I think it's going to highlight choices. Gemini is the sign of choices, but it's also the twins. And this is very interesting, I think, because there's such a sense globally of society splitting at the moment of, are you following a certain path that's driven by fear, or are you following a path that's driven by love? Is invisible. You know, we were chatting just a moment ago, Davyd.
Carry on, Pam. I'll have to edit this bit out. It's okay.
Yeah, something flashed up on my screen that I clicked to get rid of, and now I can't see you.
Okay, let me press pause.
So looking at the Gemini full moon on the 18th or 19th of December, that is right on the galactic center. Galactic center is at 27 of Sagittarius. The sun and moon are always opposite at a full moon. The sun is conjunct the galactic center exactly, and the moon is opposing it. So when planets align to the galactic center, we are able to access more galactic information, more higher consciousness information that can come into us. And of course, that's always the case at a solstice or equinox as well. So this is kind of setting us up for the Capricorn solstice. In addition, this is happening in Gemini. The moon is in Gemini, and that is the sign of choices. So this could highlight the choices people have made. Gemini is also the twins. You know, it's, do I take this path or do I take that path? And that's very clear, I think, across the world in society now. Which path have you taken? Have you taken one path that was possibly driven more by fear, or have you taken the other path that was driven by love, which may feel invisible, like the fool stepping off the cliff? You know, we're doing this on trust. We're doing it on belief. We're doing it on, I've just got to follow my heart and follow love, and that will lead me. And that's a kind of, we've never stepped into a future that's so invisible. So it's a big, big act of trust. And I think that's what that full moon is highlighting really big time. But it's very expansive as well. The moon is very tightly trying to Jupiter, very, very expansive. And then we come on to the winter solstice. And as I say, I've set that chart for, this is when the sun enters Capricorn, and I've set that for New York, Eastern Standard Time, 10:45 in the morning. So the sun is still on the great attractor, on the galactic center, because it's just tipped into Capricorn, but essentially it's still conjunct the galactic center. So this galactic energy is very, very strong. And it's sextile. The sun is very tightly sextile Jupiter, which is almost at the anaretic degree of Aquarius, almost at that last degree of Aquarius. So it's highlighting the future, the vision, but also things like freedom and human rights are coming in very strongly here as well. They're going to be highlighted here. So, and I think the other thing which is very interesting is at the time that the sun enters Capricorn, the moon is in late Cancer. It's almost 26, 27 degrees of Cancer. And that means that the moon is opposing that Venus-Pluto conjunction at 25, 26 of Capricorn. It's a very tight opposition. So it's highlighting, it's shining a light on all the things I've just mentioned with Venus, Pluto. It can be around intensity in relationships. It can be an old lover, an old flame tips up. But if I'm looking at mundane astrology, this is around the economy, finance, banking, currencies, etc. Highlighting this and people feeling intense about it. And also a certain sense of vulnerability. Cancer is quite a vulnerable sign. You want to kind of hunker down. And once the moon, it's almost like a pincer movement to the moon, because the moon has two very obsessive, powerful aspects called quindiciles, 165-degree aspects. Moon has a quindicile to Mercury in Capricorn, and it also has a quindicile to Saturn in Aquarius. So what that is saying to me, there are attempts with all of that Capricorn energy, 3 planets in Capricorn, there are attempts at greater control. I think we're going to hear in the UK this afternoon that may be the case, you know, running into this whole period and Christmas, greater attempts at control, rules and regulations for your own safety, etc. But there's going to be a lot more upset about that. And I feel a lot more rebellion around that.
Mm-hmm.
Last year, we've had a long-running square between Eris and Pluto. So Eris is at 24 of Aries, squaring Venus-Pluto. And the square to Pluto has been running for 2 years, as I say. So Pluto's top-down control from government. Eris is the street fighter. She's feisty. She will do anything to win. She hates inequality. She hates injustice. She is the truth teller. And she's also about how we need to stop fooling ourselves or being fooled. So I think there are going to be certain kind of revelations coming to light at this time. What's also very interesting is that Moon opposing Venus-Pluto, square to Eris on one side, is actually a cardinal grand cross, because on the other side, sometimes I mention her, sometimes I don't, we have a wonderful dwarf planet called Haumea, and she is a very strong symbol for New Earth. Linked to the Hawaiian goddess of fertility, can produce babies from all over her body, symbol of regeneration, renewal, can produce food from the land, even if it's laid waste. She is our symbol of New Earth. So this is a cardinal grand cross. This is about people wanting to take action, the old world collapsing, because that Eris-Pluto square is going to make sure of that, reinforced by the Saturn-Uranus square, which I'll talk about in a moment. But yet we have this new birth. We have this cleansing, purging of the old systems, and Haumea sitting there like she's even egg-shaped. I mean, astronomically, that's true. She's egg-shaped. Right. You know, she's going to produce new birth. And also we have the Saturn-Uranus square, which has been running all year, that's going to become exact again on the 24th of December, Christmas Eve. Saturn is, again, rules and regulations, the past, control for your safety. Uranus is the future. Freedom, sovereignty, autonomy, the maverick. No, I'm not going to obey the rules. And ultimately, Uranus will always win, not only because it represents the future and Saturn the past, but because it's the further out planet. And indeed, that in that square, I think Saturn has had the upper hand in 2021. My sense is, for several reasons, that I'll go on to if you want me to, that Uranus has the stronger hand in 2022. So I see this winter solstice as really pivotal. I think we all feel it. There's a massive surge of evolutionary energy, maybe the biggest we've ever experienced so far. And that is going to accelerate the collapse, but it's going to take us on one tidal wave of evolution. And we've just got to stay on the surfboard. How do you feel, Davyd?
Well, yeah.
You're excited.
Excited. Yeah, mostly excited, if I'm honest. The surfboard analogy is a great one. You know, sometimes we ride the wave and sometimes we get dunked, right? You know, and I guess when we get dunked into the surf, it's important to get back on the board and pick the next wave and ride that one too. So, I mean, it's the astrology, Pam, is intense, right? You know, you've covered so much there, I think, in the space of 10 minutes that I'm not sure, you know, what to respond to first. You know, but I'm in total agreement with you. You know, the energy is very, very intense. I personally find equinoxes and solstices very intense because there's actually an elemental energy shift in the earth on the equinoxes and the solstices. So I find it interesting that this winter solstice will be shifting from earth back into air, which is also more about the mind, about higher consciousness. But I also find it interesting about the Gemini energy too, you know, choices. Which choice do we make? Do we choose, like you said, do we choose to be in a place of fear? Do we choose to be in a place of love? Do we choose to follow our own narrative, or do we choose to follow the narrative that's being given to us from an external source? I also like the Gemini energy because what was true for me yesterday may still be true for me today, but might be a slightly different truth from the one I'm working with yesterday. And so I feel that's a really important aspect too, because you know, it's important to let go of stuff. It's important to let go of belief systems. It's important to let go of previous structures. And what may have worked for us previously in our life maybe doesn't anymore. And it's okay to say that. And it's okay to change your mind about something, you know. I think it's important to have principles that you stick to and ethics that you stick to. But at the same time, you know, what worked for me 5 months ago, 5 years ago, maybe doesn't work for me now. And that's okay. And it's okay to say that. And it's okay to say, I let it go, you know. So I think this motif of choices is really, really important, and how to ride the waves and let go of those things that no longer serve us, right? And the choice is an internal one or an external one. Do I choose to work with the internal energies and work with them in the outside world, or do I let the external energies come in and drive the internal narrative? So, you know, there's a lot going to happen, right, in the next 3 weeks, and the motif of tidal waves and tsunamis, whether it's literally water and flooding, as you've talked about in previous videos, or whether it's a tidal wave of emotions, I think both are equally likely. I do feel that the Uranus energy is going to start triggering stuff in the earth. That's long been something that I've been shown in my journeys, meditations, my plant work, is that there will be seismic activity, both in the consciousness of humans, but also actually within the earth. And that's important. This is a time of cleansing, a time of purging, and a time of collapse of the old structures. And we mustn't be afraid of that. You know, if we want to go to a new earth, we have to allow the old earth to fall and implode, collapse, restructure itself. And that's okay. You know, from the ashes of the old, the sort of the phoenix can rise and give birth to something new. And I think it's wonderful, all of the different dwarf planets energies that you talk about, and how they're often linked to indigenous cultures and rebirth and Hameo and all of these kinds of different types of astrological energies, I think is really interesting as we move into this new space. So yeah, you know, it's exciting, it's daunting, but most of all, I think it's an opportunity for us all to grasp with both hands and say, what do I choose for myself?
Yeah, I think that's so important and beautifully, beautifully said. And what will help us at this solstice is that Mercury is very tightly trying to Uranus. So again, you know, downloads, insights, flashes, galactic information, new brilliant ideas, genius ideas, original ideas that are going to carry us through. And just to really echo what you were saying about, is the authority external or is it internal? Because that's really the process of Pluto moving through Capricorn, to say, just let's have a look and see how transparent, how accountable, how high the principle and integrity of external authority has been and continues to be or not, and therefore shift your own inner authority and operate from that point. And that's the only way to go.
Right.
And, the longer we try and hang on to the old, because the future is invisible, the longer we're delaying something which is going to be absolutely amazing for all of humanity. And this is really about creating a new alternative society. That is already happening right now. All across the world, this is happening. Grassroots up, embryonic, simple things, people connecting, that's what's happening. So, it's a very powerful energy. And as, if Zach is correct, and this is going to last till 11th of January, I mean, my goodness gracious. And the year could go out with a bang, I think, Davyd, because Mars comes to cross the degree of the total solar eclipse on the 3rd, 4th. It crosses the degree 12 of Sagittarius. And that is a pretty assertive energy. We always get some activation when Mars does that. And that's, I believe, on the 29th, 28th, 29th. Just before that, we've also got Mars coming conjunct to the fixed star Antares, which is pretty violent too. So something could happen that's quite big and assertive. Jupiter moves into Pisces, which is going to be beautiful on the 29th of the month. And this could start to bring in another spiritual surge, but it could also be a lot of emotion. Can be a lot, because Pisces is super sensitive and emotional. So there's the next 3 weeks are so multi-layered and complex and dynamic. It's just a blizzard, really. It's just incredible.
It absolutely feels like that, Pam. It's an emotional blizzard. It's a blizzard on the news, and in Britain, from what I'm seeing, I mean, I'm blessed to be here in Mexico right now, but it literally looks like a blizzard. People losing power. There was Storm Arwen, and then there's been Storm Barra, and the names are endless, right? But there's a lot of bad weather, and I feel that that's something that we should kind of factor into our preparations as we all move through these next few weeks. Is how prepared are you for internal change? How prepared are you for weather changes, climate changes? The climate change conversation is a whole different piece altogether, but we are in the depths of winter as we head towards solstice. This is the dark moment of the year, but also as we come to Christmas Day is the return of the sun, and that's when the light starts to come back strongly. And for me, the energy is very clear that there are two sort of motifs to work with here. One is the light that is becoming increasingly available, and the recent eclipse was incredibly powerful. So much light, so much unconditional love available. But also, it depends where we put our attention. If we're getting pulled into the more sinister narratives that seem to be permeating our world right now, we can be consumed and overwhelmed by those. But if we put our attention, I think, more internally and hold a clear anchor and center for ourselves, then the potentiality is vast. And this 4 weeks that Zach talked about, and the energy of the full moon with the galactic center, the galactic energies, the possibility for creation, for a new earth is there. It's palpable, and all we have to do is really just sit and perhaps make a little sacred space for ourselves and just go into a place of meditation and really just see where we're at. Are we in that place of light and love, or are we in a place of fear? And are we getting attuned to the lower frequencies? Are we wondering, whether our government is really having a Christmas party or not? Does it really matter? All of that kind of crazy stuff that the news just seems to churn out, which is really just a huge distraction, right? I mean, I don't follow the news too carefully, but as I was joking with you before we jumped on this call, is just like, it's an amusement, right? It's a movie. It's almost a comedy at times. And I think that the more that we can view it in that way and be the eagle on the perch, rather than being in the actual soup, the more we can start to observe it for what it really is, which is a huge distraction, and it's pulling us out of our own centers. So as we move through these next few weeks, yes, it's a blizzard for sure, but it's one that if we can hold our center in and really just go inwards with the technology, and you've talked about this actually on previous videos, the inner technology, the natural technology that our ancestors, our so-called primitive ancestors had, is way, way more advanced than anything we're currently working with that's been produced by AI or metal or chips or whatever. And I really do believe that is a big part of the new, big part of it.
And, you said it so beautifully, Davyd. And, I was thinking this morning, are there very difficult, fearful, dystopian timelines? Absolutely. You see it right there. Absolutely. Are there exquisite, high frequency spiritual futures? Absolutely. In fact, there are a myriad of timelines, and all we're doing is getting frequency matches. That's how it's really simple principle. The universe is a mirror. So whatever we're focused on, we're activating and energizing for us as well as the collective. That's what we're going to get back in our lives. If we're focused on the fear, you're going to get more of that coming in. You know, it's just like repeat, repeat, repeat. There was some wonderful Chinese proverb about your thoughts of today are your tomorrows. And that's so true. You know, your focus is creating your tomorrow. So we've got to get much more disciplined, I think, much more focused as humanity, because in general, you know, what the internet has taught us, it's so amazing for connection, but it teaches us to have the attention span of a hamster. And what we're not good at is holding one pointed focus. And if we could do that, we'll make another jump in our evolution, I think.
And you've also touched on another point that I'd like you to expand on a little bit with the astrology, which is grassroots and tribal connections on a spiritual level. Because what I've been experiencing myself over the course of this year, and I'm sure this is the same for you and many others watching this video, is that once we start to operate at a certain frequency, we naturally start to draw people to us, or we get drawn to other people who are resonating at a similar frequency. And that for me has been a huge part of this year. Is a kind of a process of really seeing who my soul family are, those that I resonate with, those that I can talk freely with, those that I don't have to edit my conversations with. And as a consequence, that's opened up some amazing spaces for meditation work, like some of us did on the eclipse. And once we are into that space, then we can start to communicate in a different way that is much more fifth dimensional. So perhaps you can expand on that through how you see it in the astrology.
Yeah, beautiful. And I think that's absolutely vital as we go through these times, to find your tribe, find your people of like mind. And as you say, it can happen automatically as a frequency match, or, you know, you can do a bit of hunting, but that will be so supportive, particularly if you've taken the invisible off the cliff edge route, because people tend to turn up to those groups saying, I thought I was all on my own. And, you know, hey presto, I've now got a whole bunch of friends that live not very far away, but actually all think the same as me. And that's the beginning. These are the little hubs of light that are starting to organize themselves, get some land, plant some food. The teachers in the group are saying, do you know what? I think I'll act as a teacher for homeschooling your kids, because I'm now available, because I've stepped out of the mainstream system. A whole new legal system is now emerging based on common law, all kinds of stuff. And yes, it's embryonic. Yes, we're in early days, but that's very Uranian. We want to do it our way. We want sovereignty, autonomy, and we will come together in community and collaboration in high frequency and create. It will no longer be top down, Capricorn. We're done with that. It's going to be grassroots up. And so these hubs of light are going to be forming all over, and they are, but they're also connecting in a network, because the Uranus is always also about the network as well, and sharing information, etc., etc. So this is really exciting, because you can create whatever you want to create based on principles of love, mutual respect, trust, compassion, etc. So, very high principle that we're starting to create a new world from. And I think it's going to be wonderful.
Yeah, and actually something else is perhaps worth bringing into this, and maybe other people are having a similar experience, and even between me and you, is we've never met in person, yet we've managed to do a whole lot this year together and connected in a wonderful way. And that's been true of many people that I've connected to, quite a few, through actually doing these interviews with you this year, that I've never met in person, yet I have a group of beings, of humans, that I'm deeply connected to on an energetic level that I've never met. And I'm just like, that to me is also something really incredible. And it's because the resonant frequencies are congruent with each other. And I think that that's also something that we will see more of as we move into the future, is we don't necessarily have to be together in person to do amazing things together.
Yeah, and Uranus also rules the internet. And I think it could well be that there are different internets. We're going to have different financial systems, different blockchains, different crypto, very obvious reasons. So yeah, Uranus for me is going to be in a much stronger position next year, and that means next year is probably much less stable, on a 3D level. It's because the old systems that have been foundational in our lives are going to be collapsing. So it can get, you know, where do I find my foothold? But again, it's just trusting your frequency. You know, it's hitching your wagon to a star and saying, that's where I'm headed, and I'm going to manifest that. Because the other reasons that Uranus, I think, is becoming stronger is it goes direct on the 18th of January, but in January as well, for the next 18 months, the nodes move into Taurus, North Node in Taurus, and South Node in Scorpio. So that strengthens that Uranian energy because the North Node has moved into that same sign. Indeed, Uranus becomes very tight on the eclipses, 30th of April and 8th of November next year, solar eclipse and a lunar eclipse. So the Uranian energy is highlighted there. And actually in the last week of July, first week of August, you've got a conjunction between Mars, Uranus and the North Node. Woof, I mean, really explosive, exciting. And this could also be, because it's Taurus, this could be about new alternative currencies. I mean, I'm very aware that all the central banks have already invented in the UK, it's Britcoin, not Bitcoin. You know, they've all got a digital currency ready to go. But the whole point of cryptos originally was independent currencies. So again, we have to tread carefully. Do we want to be back in the centralized system, or do we want some kind of independent crypto system? So I think there's going to be a lot of financial change, economic change, turmoil, etc., radical changes in values. And yes, you've mentioned it already, Davyd, not being attached. And that's going to feel quite scary. You know, can I let go of everything I've known that has structured my life, my job, my home, the area where you've just got to trust that star that you hitched to. And it is going to feel more unstable perhaps than it's ever felt, but it's also going to feel like an incredibly exciting ride on that surfboard.
Right, and again, you've touched on some really interesting points. I think trust is a major part of this. Do I trust my own intuitions enough to step away from the job that I had for 20 years inside the system? But also, do I trust enough to realize that maybe that I can do the same work, but outside of the system in a different community? And I think I would urge everybody right now to look to see where their attachments are into the matrix, the system, the illusion, the spell, because the spell is very, very ubiquitous and it's easy to get caught up in it. And yet there's always another option, another choice, another alternative. But we have to trust enough in our own intuitions and in the higher forces and all of the astrology that you've talked about to know that there is always another option. And I think that's going to be a big part of the direction that we all take as individuals and obviously as a collective too. And it's interesting you were talking about Bitcoin, and it's just like, yes, crypto was meant to be an independent monetary system, and yet it's been absolutely usurped, hijacked, taken over by the system. And so I think we have to be very careful about observing these things going on and really being sure that we are in a place of sovereignty as individuals and as new communities.
Yeah, beautifully said. And I think the other thing I'd like to say, and I kind of hinted at it in one of my recent videos, is Uranus is connected to, these surges of energy, bolts of lightning, EMFs, man-made EMFs, natural EMFs. And so they're connected to coronal mass ejections, M-class storms, solar flashes. I was listening to a guy yesterday, a video, and he's at Colvin College in the US. He's clearly a cosmologist or an astronomer or something. His name was very hard to hear, but for years he's been studying two binary star systems that are going to merge and cause a supernova explosion. And his maths tell him that's going to happen in 2022. A supernova explosion. These only happen once every 10,000 years. That is pure Uranian energy. You know, a supernova explosion, you know, it's out in space, it's explosive. But so Uranus has the potential to flip the whole picture. Like all of a sudden, your world is totally different. Whether it's a tsunami, a coronal mass ejection, a supernova explosion, whatever it can just flip the whole game, flip the board, flip the picture. So all of a sudden we're standing in a different world, everything's gone, and we think, wow, but the energy is amazing.
Yeah.
And I can't tell you when that's going to happen because Uranus is the planet of surprises. So, but I have a very strong sense we're going to see a lot of this next year.
Right, and actually, you just touched on something that I did want to bring up, which I saw a friend post on one of the social media channels recently about a CIA document that has been just recently released. I think it's called the Adam and Eve story, and it's linked to the Smithsonian Institute, and how they had been researching for a long time a lot of the hieroglyphics and ancient civilizations, and had realized that every 6,000 years there is a pole shift. It's actually there in the records. We know this from much of the work that people like Graham Hancock and Freddie Silver and people have done, which has been really, really important for opening up that whole kind of area of discussion and research. But this kind of flipping, the scientists are saying that the poles are wobbling like crazy, and that it's inevitable. And I think you were just telling me earlier there's been a series of earthquakes in America in the last few days, and actually there's been a lot of earthquakes all over the world recently, which is not particularly unusual. But if we look at what's been going on in Iceland, that looks like a magma bomb waiting to go off. And so I think that we should always have this potentiality for flipping, whether it's Mother Earth is going to flip, whether it's something from outer space that's going to come, or whether we flip our internal mechanisms again. And I'm always going to come back to this internal external, because I think it's really important. But I feel that we are on the verge of a flipping of some description, probably on an individual and a planetary level. And that's, on the one hand, potentially very scary, right? Because, there could be a lot of flooding, as you've talked about. But also, I think this is where we have to come to a place of trust. And I would really urge all of the listeners to really tune into where do they feel they need to be on the earth over these next few weeks, next couple of months, and really trust that even if it seems completely contrary to what the world around you or your friends or your family tell you, follow your instincts, follow your own inner narrative, and find the place on the earth where you feel that you should be. Because there are some very powerful places on the earth where we can anchor ourselves into the energy of Mother Earth, but also connect into the galactic energies. And all we have to do is tune in and find that place within ourselves, and then we might already be there. I'm sure many of the listeners out there are already in those places. But if you're feeling a little bit lost or unanchored, then this is an opportunity right now before a major flipping might happen. And as you said, there's no guarantees, there's no timelines, there's no sort of place that we can put a sure bet down at the bookies about when this is going to happen. But I feel it is going to happen. And, I think it's interesting that this new piece of information has come out from this kind of released CIA document saying that they know about this. And, there's a lot of focus on Antarctica. A lot of the elites have been visiting Antarctica. I didn't realize just how high Antarctica was. The mountain range in Antarctica is actually comparable with the Alps in Europe. And, without going too far into a rabbit hole discussion, I'm sure that there are some very, very interesting things underneath the ice in Antarctica, which might also get revealed soon with some of the energies that are coming to us all.
And what's interesting, of course, that total solar eclipse, the eclipse path was over Antarctica. Right. Which I mentioned in the video. And the reason apparently that we're having a lot more volcanoes and earthquakes is because of the drop in the magnetic shield of the Earth. We don't have that pressure, as it were, on the Earth's crust. And that's why it's, as I understand it, the Earth's core is expanding and it's cracking the crust of the Earth. And yeah, absolutely right, Davyd. The North Pole is apparently moving so fast, they're having to update GPS systems more frequently so the planes can hit the runway, because we'd all kind of go missing a bit, go off piece. So it's really interesting. This Uranian energy is so high vibe. It's so galactic. That's what will take us on real leaps and bounds in our evolution. I mean, my sense is that, a lot of people are talking about the portals opening. I mean, Rory Duff is talking about, through his master dowsing work, all the energy lines of the Earth are strengthening and widening. The dragon lines are waking up. The portals are opening up. We're moving into an incredibly powerful year of evolutionary change. I mean, unstoppable, not that stable, but wow. And because my sense is almost by the end of 2022, a lot of this collapse will have already happened. And we've got some beautiful things coming through. I don't know if you want me to talk about the Jupiter-Neptune conjunction.
I absolutely do, because I think it's a big part of what we've just been alluding to. But also, just to add to that, I've been blessed to have a couple of sessions with Zach, that you talk a lot about, and we talked about this very topic about Earth portals and places on the Earth, and he indicated to me that there are a lot of potential new portals that are currently dormant, but also that they're not particularly that they're new, but they're actually really, really ancient. And I think that's also something really interesting as part of the ascension process. Is through some of my own journey work, I've seen blueprints, templates of all kinds of things, ancient pyramids, not necessarily in the ground as structures, but as etheric structures, almost rising up out of the earth as a new blueprint for us to work with. And I really feel that a lot of the new earth at an energetic level, particularly in the fifth dimension, are these kinds of blueprints. And from what Zach said, it seems as though there are going to be a lot of new places on the earth where there are portals that need to be activated. So again, if you get an intuition to go somewhere on the planet that seems completely out of the blue, I would just follow that, because there may be something really important for you as an individual, but also in the process for the earth. So yes, let's get into Neptune a little bit more and talk about that.
Yeah, thank you, because this is going to be one of the big aspects of next year, as well as Uranus being stronger, I feel. Neptune is already in Pisces. I think it moved in, I think around 203, but anyway, it is the modern ruler of Pisces. It's already there. Jupiter is the ancient ruler of Pisces. Jupiter ducked into Pisces this year, 2021, from mid-May to end July. And the good thing about that was a lot of the lockdowns eased at that time, but there was also a lot of flooding, particularly in Europe, Germany, Belgium, massive. I mean, cars being swept away, etc. This conjunction hasn't happened in, it happens every year, but not necessarily in Pisces. So 1856 was the last time it happened at 18 degrees of Pisces. Massive flooding in Europe then, particularly France. So because Pisces is unlimited water, it has no boundary, and Jupiter expands and it's coming together with Neptune, yes, there is the potential for flooding, because Jupiter moves into Pisces 29th of December and it stays there till the 11th of May, and then it ducks back in end of October till the end of 2022. So it's those first 5 months where it's very, very strong. Now, at the lower level of expression, yeah, this can bring up flooding, it can bring up more confusion, more hypnosis, more delusion, more psychosis, etc. But it can also bring up huge compassion. And it is magical. I mean, this is absolutely magical. It's kind of otherworldly. It's iridescent colors. It's, higher beings. It's feeling oneness. It's feeling unconditional love. It's connecting to source. It's how can I give of myself? How can I give of my heart? How can I give and be of spiritual service? And it will very much, I believe, sweep away old structures in a tsunami, absolute tsunami. And yes, emotions may be very high, but this is going to create a huge spiritual impulse, surge, jump for many. Particularly, this is happening at 23 degrees of Pisces. If you have anything between kind of 22, 24, particularly of Pisces, but also Cancer or Scorpio, you are going to feel this. This will carry you on a tidal wave, hopefully not literally, but a tidal wave of spiritual evolution. It's going to be amazing. So meditate around that time. Watch your dreams. Your dreams are going to be really strong around that time. And it's a time when people are going to want more spiritual meaning in their life, but it's about a connection to the ethereal and a connection to the divine. And that's what I feel will be exquisite. It gives us the opportunity to touch something that maybe in the last 2 years of density and contraction, we've just lost sight of. So this is another, Uranus is electrical, electromagnetic, galactic, buzzy, surging energy. Jupiter, Neptune is just bliss. It's the mystic, it's bliss. It's let me just sink into the divine and that sense of oneness. It's very, very different. And you put the two together and we are going to be rocking in evolutionary terms. Wow. For those who want that, that trajectory. And so my feeling is that, we're entering some pretty wild, turbulent months, but even by kind of spring, Northern Hemisphere time, kind of April, May time, maybe even March, things will be different. Things will be less contracted by then, because I feel that a lot will have collapsed even by then, which is a very short period of time.
Mm. Yeah, and actually, as you're saying all of this, what's coming to my mind is this idea that this winter solstice is almost like the event horizon. The energy has been so fast, right? So fast, and so much can be done so quickly. So much healing can be done quickly. Manifestation can happen quickly. And I know you talked about your friend on your recent video. We put the prayer out, and as long as we're in that place of trust and not a sense of expectation about how it's going to happen, but we just put the prayer out for whatever we need, the most appropriate things that we need, the resources that we need, they always come. I've reflected recently on prayers and wishes and dreams that I'd made earlier in my life, and actually when I looked at them, they'd all come true. Some of them might have taken 10, 15 years, but they did come true. And we live in a time when the energy is so fast, so fast, but also it's been so dense. We've been living in a very dense era for the last several thousand years, but I feel that we're coming to a point now, which I believe is winter solstice, and then it's going to go back out. And I feel the energy that you've been talking about, particularly on the full moon, the access to the higher realms, to the galactics, that's the onset of that new energy coming. And sure, the new earth is not going to be birthed, overnight. Like anything, it's a process, and the civilization that we've been in is collapsing, and that's a process too. But I do feel that we're at this pivotal point, and as the energy comes out of that sort of pincer funnel, I think you called it the birth canal early this year, right? And it's been like that, and the birth is about to happen. This is the point where we can step into that new space. And sure, births can be messy sometimes, right? It's not all necessarily plain sailing, but I think as long as we can hold on to that new energy as it comes in and really anchor ourselves, and this is important, I think, when we have those higher mind experiences, is that we can anchor the frequency that we experience in those moments. So if we have a bad day, or we find ourselves on our knees with something, whatever it might be, that we can, in our minds, we can go back to those anchor points, those energetic anchor points. And so we can remember, but it's okay. I know that it's not going to be this messy all the time. It can be like this. And as we move out into the spring of next year, and towards the spring equinox, I feel these energies it is going to be a tidal wave. And I think we can really ride those waves in whatever way works for each of us individually, but also as a collective.
Yeah, really nicely said. And I think also what's just coming to me is, I've said it in the past, that our reality is much more malleable than we think. We think everything is tangible and fixed and solid, and it is. It's all just financial. And the conjunction is going to help to show us how malleable reality really is, how we can just flex and change and manifest and shift. Shape shifting is what I want to say. It's almost mermaid energy, this kind of thing. And of course, the Kuiper belt objects we're starting to learn more about, which is a finer, higher energy, which is very much connected, I think, to New Earth and the quantum realm and how we create. So this is magical. At its best, this is absolutely magical. And again, we always choose our trajectory of, are we going to live this at the gritty 3D level and be, wish we'd learned to swim better, or are we going to kind of live it at the higher level and just be in divine bliss?
Yeah. And I think it's probably just worth, again, reflecting that what we experience in the 3D world is the end result. It's already been cast. The magic has already been cast in the higher realms. And if we are living in the idea that we can change our reality from the 3D up, I think we're going to hit problems. The way I see it, the way I've always seen it in the work that I do, is that we manifest from our dreams, from the fifth dimension, the higher consciousness down. This is the medicine wheel of life. That this is air. We're in a time of air. And if we can really be in that kind of mind space and be clear and uncontaminated in our thinking, in our meditations, then we can really dream in something beautiful. And that's when we move around into fire. That's the energy, that's giving it the energy to make it manifest. And then of course, in the medicine wheel, we move to water, which is the accumulation, the harvest time, and then it goes back into the earth and the wheel starts again. And when we start to live our life through the natural medicine wheel, working with the elements in this way, we can create whatever we want. You know, we are unique beings. We are the 10th hierarchy. We are godlike beings, and we can create whatever we want. That's what makes humans special. We can create into this three-dimensional world from our higher minds. And if we can really get into that mode of thinking and be clear, and I think this is also something important that's worth just reflecting on again, we have to be clean. We have to be energetically clean. If we are contaminated with lower frequency emotional traumas, particularly I think around fear and guilt and shame, then this is going to contaminate the way that we look at things, and we're going to get caught into that lower frequency thinking that means that we only believe what we see is happening in the three-dimensional world. You know, everything around us is somebody's dream, somebody's manifestation. The laptops that we're using, the book that I'm writing on the table, this all started out as somebody's idea at some point, and it's become a reality. So I think it's simple, but it's really, really important.
Yeah, very well said. It's like, you know, the architect has a thought, an idea about a house, then he draws it 2D on a piece of paper, and then it becomes 3D. And yes, I think something that occurred to me as you were speaking, Davyd, is that we have not really ever had a sense of our own power until now. What this pandemic has shown us or forced us into as a catalyst is we are now discovering our own power in a much bigger way than we ever have before. So I don't think we'd have got to this point if it had all been, you know, same old, going to work, you know, annual holiday, etc., etc. And you're absolutely right. I mean, 5D is already there in frequency. We've just got to step into that. And I believe that this whole transformation has already happened at the higher level. You know, the light is blazing at that higher level. It's just on Earth, some of humanity is saying, no, you know, don't show me the light, you know, I want to hang on to this. You know? So we have to be brave enough to step into that light and say we are going to be holding hands in stepping into that light. Yeah. We are doing this together. This is the power of the people and a great sense of community and collaboration and loving each other. All of our values are shifting from buying stuff and territorial materialism to I want to share and I want to give and I want to be with like-minded people and laugh and hug and be in joy. Yeah. And that's the whole reorientation, I think.
Yeah, and you said something nice in one of your recent videos about the sort of the tuning fork of the 3 months post solstices and post equinoxes. And I think for me, what I've observed across the course of, well, particularly this year, but the last 2 years, is often what I'm shown in the higher realms happening in the energetic way takes about 3 months to actually manifest down into the physical world. I observed what I called a sort of a lag, although I feel that the lag has got a lot less. And, you know, that's also something worth sort of thinking about when we're making prayers and dreams. Sometimes they, you know, depending on the size of the dream or the prayer, they can take a little longer to manifest. But as long as we understand that once we put that prayer really, really clearly with our minds and intentions, and then we let it go, we mustn't hold on to how it's going to manifest. Once we do that, we limit, you know, the universe or great spirit's potentiality to deliver us something amazing. And speaking from experience, when I've done this and just let it go properly, Spirit brings the most incredible miracles. I've seen and experienced things in my own life and other people's, but we have to let go and we mustn't try to contort the vast infinite possibilities that the universe can give us. And this is the kind of energy that I think is coming with the full moon, is this sort of understanding of this, you know, not getting too wrapped up into the 3D and trying to move everything around here, but just allow your spirit to rise up into those spaces more freely. Allow your mind to wander into new places of creativity that you perhaps didn't even know that you had, and then see what resonates for you. I think this is really important too, is follow your joy. Don't follow somebody else's joy. Don't follow somebody else's story. Follow yours and do the things that you love. Find the people that you love being around, those people that make you feel good, that you want to, you know, reciprocate and mirror back. You know, unconditional love does not have any expectations attached to it. And I think that's also something that many beings, many people are starting to experience, is just what unconditional love really is. It doesn't require any sense of expectation or needing anything. It just is.
Yeah, really lovely. And also, you know, in terms of the manifestation and time speeding up, Uranus always speeds time up, and it's in the moment, bang, like bolt of lightning, you know, flash of light, boom, there you go. So it can be extremely rapid, and I think that's incredibly exciting to just really trust that and let go of the old. I had another thing. Oh yeah. And while you were speaking, it reminded me, many years ago, I read a great book by a German lady. I can't remember her name, but it's a recording service. And she used the analogy of when you're setting intention to manifest, of putting your order into the restaurant kitchen, and then you just trust that your meal is going to come. You don't go into the kitchen, harass the chef and say, have you done it yet? What are the ingredients you're using? I'm not sure I agree with that. And keep going back and forwards to the kitchen to check on him. You just trust that the universe will deliver it, and you let it go, as you say. And it was a brilliant analogy, actually. Yeah. Cosmic Ordering Service, great book, quite an old book now, but a brilliant book.
A great analogy, and it's simple, but it's true, right? You know, and when we think about things through these analogies, it would be kind of stupid, right, to do that process that you've just said. If you've gone to a restaurant and trusted the great chef to make you a dinner, to be in that process. So why would we do that with other things that are equally important to us, you know? And, as we move into the new earth, and you talked about this on another one of your recent videos. In fact, we talked about it right back at the beginning of the year in the organic versus inorganic piece that we did, is that the technology that is available to us from the natural world, of which we as humans are naturally a part of, is vast. It's vast. And again, this is something I talked with Zach about earlier this year, to do with the work that I do with plants. And this is the technology that plant intelligence has for us, or all of nature has for us, is around us all the time. You know, and so if we want to get into a place of higher mind consciousness, there are plants that can help us with that. If we want to be in the space of being really connected to our dreams, there are plants like mugwort, for example, that we can work with. Or I'm currently working with Mexican wormwood. In fact, just a little story, when I first came to Mexico and was needing some assistance from the natural kingdom, what do I find at the very gateway to the place that I'm now living is Mexican wormwood, known as Istahuatl in the Aztec language. And she just howled at me, hey, here I am, you need to get on board. And so I did a 3-week diet with her, made an essence and a bunch of tinctures, and I've been drinking the tea every night, sitting on the steps of my little room looking at the stars. And we have an incredible starscape here in Mexico, you know, really, really clear skies. And that's inspiring, just to sit out of an evening looking at the vast infinite nature of the universe, drinking a wonderful tea like Mexican wormwood that is thankfully not as bitter as the normal wormwood. But also, again, this is a plant, as I've talked about on previous videos, you know, traditional wormwood, Artemisia absinthium, is a plant that can help us cleanse out parasitic energies that are sucking on our natural energy resources, contaminating our thinking. And so again, it's follow your intuitions, follow the impulses from nature that bring you to plants. Plants always want to talk to us. And when we talk back, we can find these resonant frequencies that can change our frequency, but it also changes their frequencies too. And this is what Zach told me. He said, the plants are equally on a journey as you guys are, but the more that we can work together, co-creation with nature, the more that they're going to evolve, the more that plant technology, that higher mind plant capacity that we can work with on an internal level. We can all be our own shamans, we can all be our own physicians, we can all be our own healers when we work with the natural kingdom. And I think that that's something so profound, so beautiful, that it's out there, and you know, we don't have to go and see anybody to talk about it, or you know, to get a prescription for something or whatever. We can just go and sit and experience that. And you talk a lot about going into the forest and being underneath various trees, and trees are the most incredibly profound beings, very, very realized beings. But nature offers that in abundance. I don't know how many plant and tree species there are in the world, but there must be hundreds and hundreds of thousands, right, for us all to play with.
Yeah, and I love that. I love that, because I know that's your work, and you know, you're such an expert at that, Davyd. And I love that, because in the last video I sort of hinted at this, of talking about the life force of nature and the different consciousnesses of different plants and trees, which you're so familiar, you know, this is your bread and butter. But it's so exciting to me to think in New Earth we are going to be stepping back to that. We're going to be talking to the trees. They are ancient beings with enormous wisdom to guide us. And we've had no sense of that. We just stroll through and think, oh, this is pretty. But we haven't had that depth of connection, which the ancient peoples have, and also the Kuiper Belt objects are promising with their archetypes, and you do as daily work. So that excites me incredibly, because this is the new health system.
Yes.
This is the new health system. It's ancient, it's completely natural, and that's going to be our health system going forwards.
I agree. And I think as we move through this kind of upsurge of energy that frees up our energy system. We've been in such a dense world for so long that it's been quite difficult for a lot of us, probably most of us at some point in life, to actually communicate or sit in the place of communication with plant and tree beings. But now, as we free up our fields, as we cleanse ourselves, as we get lighter in our vibration, it's much easier for us to have these communications with plants. And anyone can go out and make a flower essence or a plant essence. I'm not particularly special in that regard. I've been doing it for a while, so I've kind of got good at the process. But this is a simple mechanism working with water and sun and pure intention in a co-creative way. And the plants want to co-create. They love working with us. They really, really do. And so this is what Zach said, this is the future of healthcare. And I 100% believe, and I've seen it with some of our students, people make connections with the most incredible plants. And I think it's really, really exciting to see which plants want to connect with which people, because it's something about the resonant frequencies. And like I said, people can be nettle shamans, they can be mugwort shamans, they can, they can work with the entheogens too, but there's so many plants. I've got one of my students who works with fleabane that came to her for a very synchronistic series of events, but it was exactly what she needed in that moment. I'm like, wow, that's incredible. It's like, who would have thought fleabane can do this, this, and this, but on an energetic level, that's what the plant shared. And so that's what, that's how it was worked with. And I'm just like this, I remember at another event I went to, a young guy came to me and said that pineapple weed had been calling him. And I'm like, he said, is that a thing? Pineapple weed? Is it talking to me? And I said, well, it's never talked to me, but hey, it's part of the chamomile family. So yes, probably. And he said, what should I do? I said, go and sit with the plant, talk to it, make an essence, get involved. It's a friendship, it's a relationship, and it's alliance, and plants and humans are really not so different. And I think we're going to really understand that much more in the years to come.
I find that incredibly exciting. Every cell in my being is kind of sizzling. I find that so exciting because I think we'll see nature in brighter colors, shimmering, iridescent, and we'll hear these different messages. This is something we've lost in modern society. It's just almost a sense that's become deadened or dormant. And that I find so exciting, that you can actually start to communicate, as you do, Davyd, with these different trees and plants, and actually have conversations and deep connections. This is the shamanic world. And I can't tell you how excited I feel about that.
Good. And I hope that through these conversations, I hope that we inspire other people to get excited, because it's the future, and it's not all of the future, but for me, it's a very exciting part of the future. And imagine, being in a space where you are in a field, an energetic field, so to speak, with all of these beings at once who maybe all want to talk to you, or some of them want to talk to you, and just being able to shift your dial enough to go and say, okay, this is the frequency of mugwort. And when we say we have conversations, it's not like having a telephone conversation for an hour, even doing a conversation like this with you. Plants talk to us differently. They talk to us through symbology, through synchronicities. All we have to do is be open enough to see the details of the life around us. And for me, that's the beauty. It brings us really into the present moment. Plants make us very present because they ask us to be in a place of observation at all times. And the more we're in that place of observation at all times, the more the present moment expands. And of course, there is only the present moment, right? That's the only thing that ever truly exists.
But what an adventure that is. And because in the Western world, well, really large parts of the world, we've been defined by our title, who we are, what we earned, that kind of thing, because the Saturn Jupiter conjunctions that have kind of defined society for the last 200 years have been in earth, density, materialism, bricks and mortar, money, etc. But now, as of December 2020, that whole conjunction for the next 200 years roughly has shifted into air. So it's shared experiences. But what you're talking about is such an adventure. Why would I care about the money or not that I've ever cared very much, but why would I care with that quality of adventure and experience? That's a whole new world opening up of frequency and vibration, which as modern people, we have never truly known. And that is, I'm so excited. I mean, it's mega, I think.
Me too. And I think once you start to step into that world more and more, things like money and these kind of lower dense experiences, that they just don't seem to be so important. Money comes, money goes, and it's a mechanism. It's just another route for energy to work through. And as long as we're not trying to hold on to it, and one of my teachers made a very good point about this. He said, money is an energy, and when you hoard it, it goes stagnant. It's not meant to be hoarded, it's meant to flow through you. So, this is something I've been doing this year, is just every time I pay for something, it's kind of like my universal credit system. I'm like, okay, I want to give this freely. I happily pay for this because it's going to pop out somewhere else in the system at another energetic ATM that will come back to me. And the more we're in this place of free flow and abundance, the more it just flows. The more we try to hold on to it, it becomes stagnant and becomes something we get attached to. Eventually that's going to start weighing us down. And we're in a time when that kind of attachment is perhaps going to lead us into making decisions that don't allow us to free up. So I think that's also important.
Yeah, that's Uranus in Taurus, isn't it? Taurus are values, but it's also fixed earth in terms of attachment and density and hanging on. We may be hanging on to pieces of driftwood in the wreckage, still saying, no, I've got to, this is what I know, this is what's familiar, because Taurus doesn't want things to change quickly. It wants to keep things as they are because it feels secure and safe and permanent, but it absolutely isn't. With Uranus in Taurus, they are difficult bedfellows. It's going to rock that world, and we have to go with a higher energy in order to really get onto that fast evolution at its best.
I agree 100%. And I think, as my sort of final conclusion for our discussion today, this is a time of high magic. We are living in one of the most magical times that many of us have probably experienced for a very long time here on Earth. And I'm sure many of our listeners and viewers will have had many past life experiences. And the last few thousand years have been very karmic, very dense, very heavy. But now, because we've done all of this work, we've worked through all of it, we have the gifts, the rewards. And this always happens when we do the internal work. It's painful sometimes, and sometimes we don't want to let go, and sometimes there's resistance. But when we do work through this and we release, and we can release really quickly right now, there's always something amazing on the other side. And for me, it's the things we've been talking about. It's the magic of the natural kingdom. It's the magic that our ancestors have left us, that our ancients used to work with. And yeah, it's like, to me, that's just exciting. So rather than focus on the dense, heavy stuff, let's put our attention with the element of air. You said it, we're into a 200-year air process. We're about to move into another 3-month air process between solstice and spring equinox. Just let that energy in, let it flow through you, work with it, and maybe find some plants or essences, whatever, that are going to help you with that. And actually, on that note, third eye and crown chakra are super important right now. And in the dense urban environment, speaking from experience, it's very, very distorted. I found it very, very difficult being in London recently. I couldn't think straight. Once I got out of the city, it cleared. And just to add that, if you're feeling a bit blocked here or here, it's probably because of very, very strong EMF frequencies that are distorting those chakras. So plants like St. John's wort in the crown chakra or wormwood in the third eye just allow you to see and think more clearly. So yeah, get into your mind space. Don't get it into your head, but get into your mind space and allow things to flow.
Yeah, beautiful. I really love that. And I just love this whole idea of, which has always been there, that nature has everything that we need to heal ourselves. It is ancient wisdom. And I understand, I mentioned this in another video at some point, that if you're planting seeds, I think some naturopath discovered this, that if you spit on the seed as you plant them, the plant or the vegetable will produce what your body lacks, which is extraordinary intelligence, isn't it? And that's mind-blowing intelligence. So yeah, these are very, very exciting times, but it's a whole different quality of adventure and energy, totally different from how we've lived our lives up to now. But that's what's so exciting.
I agree. And, I think that's a beautiful place to finish what has been another inspiring conversation, Pam. We're in very, very challenging times, but if we can keep being inspired by the things that we've talked about, then we can live in a different frequency. And I think that that's something that I would really urge all of the listeners and viewers just to really sink into a space of, over the next few weeks. So just again, for those people watching on the Wisdom Hub, I know many of your viewers already know all of this, but just please share your website details and how people can find out more about what you do.
Yeah, it's Pam Gregory. Well, the website is pamgregory.com. The YouTube channel, which is very busy, is Pam Gregory Astrology, and only that one. I currently have 6 scam channels operating, taking my videos. So it's just the Pam Gregory astrology one, and you stick with that, and you know that's my official channel. Yeah, those are the big things really. I've got books, teaching videos, etc., but that's all on the website.
Thank you,
Thank
Pam.
you, Davyd.
You're welcome. And for those people interested more in working with plant medicines, you can find out more about the essences that we have made over the years at plantconsciousness.com. And also, if you're interested in more of the work that I do, or even just to reach out and connect, I love hearing from all of you in different ways. You know, it's part of the process and the journey. You can reach me at david@wisdomhub.tv, and the notes for those will be in the show notes, I'm sure, on Pam's channel and on Wisdom Hub too. So thank you everybody for listening. You know, please stay in that high vibration space. Just marvel at the magic of the world. Thank you so much, Pam. As always, an absolute pleasure. And I hope we get to do this again sometime in 2022. Ciao for now, everyone.
Fantastic. So well. Yeah. Bye so much, Davyd. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.